Before we start talking about cartoons, Jeff, you don't like the 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Oh my gosh, you're springing this on me.
I told him. I had to tell him.
All right, so I saw that movie in theaters, like I'm sure both of you did, and I thought it was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen. And I watched it a handful of times, probably when it came out on video. So I had a very high memory of that movie. But what I told Jake the other day was when I rewatched it, and I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years, like 6 or 7 years ago, I did not actually care for it very much. So, and I didn't know at the time that this is apparently one of your top Mount Rushmore movies. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's very fair to say.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I did not find it funny when I rewatched it. I mean, I take it back. I found it funny. I was just disappointed with, I think maybe my expectations were too high. I don't know. I thought some of the jokes felt kind of flat. I thought there was kind of I thought the Steve Carell character was like presented in a very weird way, which I didn't remember. I remember thinking that was kind of strange. Like, why is he peeing on himself? I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Of course it makes sense because he doesn't.
Because he's never had sex. He doesn't understand.
And he doesn't
erections.
masturbate. He doesn't know.
That's another part. I remember that too. I was like, wait, this is a whole joke that he doesn't know how to masturbate? He's still an adult.
He doesn't.
I mean, I can hear all the bull crap that Jeff's talking about right now, and it's I mean, we don't like to tell people that they're wrong on this show, but yeah, I guess I don't know how to finish that sentence.
Can you guys hear my cat losing his mind in the background?
I can't.
Because of what I said about the 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah, he's really upset. In our episode on the 40-Year-Old Virgin, at one point I told Jake he was wrong about the movie This Is 40, and when I edited it, I took that out because we don't like to say that on this podcast.
Okay.
But I will leave it in here.
Right, that's fair. All right, I'll take it.
Let's talk about cartoons, because this is a crazy pair of movies we chose to represent the 1980s, and actually a perfect pair of movies that we chose to represent the 1980s, because it gets at this fundamental issue of trying to find good stuff to watch animated in the 80s, which is the United States shit the bed for the entire decade. And Japan, to a lesser extent, also shit the bed, but in a couple cases, changed the industry and the medium completely. And so we're going to talk about Akira, well, because you guys hadn't seen it, which is wild.
That is shocking, yeah.
And then we're also going to talk about The Transformers, the movie, for reasons Jake will explain in a second. But first, welcome back to Never Did It. My name is Brad Garoon. I'm here with Jake Ziegler on Never Did It. We look back at the last 100 years plus of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. This is season 2, Animation Boogaloo, and we have a very special guest on for the 5th time.
That sounds right. Probably. Yeah, it's up there.
Wow.
Earning his Letterman jacket.
The honorable, or the inaugural member.
We've got Professor Jeff Richardson. Great to have you. Okay, so let's save the best for last. Jake, explain why you recommended the movie The Transformers, the movie, for
Well, I'd always wanted to see it because I'm sure at some point in my childhood I had come across it and probably, had seen it. But, as I got older, it was one of those movies that had like a cult following amongst people our age. Our old roommate, for example, Jimmy Jacobs, he used to use it, the song from the movie You Got the Touch as his entrance music. And I'm shocked that I never got around to watching the movie like during that period of time, because that would have been a fine time to watch it. But, as guys who grew up, we're about the same age. We grew up in the 80s. Transformers was, kind of a big thing then. I had a bunch of the toys. I certainly remember watching the show and all that. So I thought, if nothing else, I didn't have the expectation that it was going to be like a great movie or anything. But I thought, hey, maybe this would be, like a fun little bit of, whatever childhood nostalgia for us. And just, there's those movies that are just good ones to cross off the list. And I kind of thought that, I'm sorry, this movie's a mess. How did this even get made?
I'm glad you asked that question, because it got made because of toys. And that's why I came to find like a ton of big animated movies in the 80s got made because of toys. So we'll talk about this more next week when we talk about the 1990s movies and Don Bluth. But Don Bluth led this big walkout at Disney of 11 major animators and started his own animation company. And that's why we got the only good 80s animated movies outside of The Great Mouse Detective. I would say the only good Disney animated movies. I mean, the Little Mermaid comes at the very end, but Disney otherwise is a total mess. Black Cauldron, Jesus Christ. And we get our only good American animated movies in Don Bluth's The Secret of Nim and The Land Before Time. But even they are like, they don't capture the public consciousness the way that Disney had previously and would in the next decade. And instead, we get Saturday morning cartoons jammed into movie theaters, very cheaply made, with no accessibility for anyone who's not a giant fan of the Saturday morning. Like, I'm not a Transformers guy. I never have been. I don't like the new movies. I didn't watch the show growing up. I didn't read the comic book. All this stuff also came out at the exact same time to sell toys. Reagan had just deregulated the advertising industry. so that you could advertise to children in a way that you couldn't before. And that's why we got Saturday morning cartoons in the way that we did, to sell toys and also to put cartoons on cereal boxes. And so we also got like this movie and Care Bears and Rainbow Bright, which I rewatched this morning.
Oh, wow. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I loved that movie when I was a kid because it was like the only VHS that my grandfather had. So we'd watch it a lot at his house. Oh, man. The Transformers, the movie is bad. I'm sorry, we should go back and mention, you said Jimmy Jacobs' entrance music. Jimmy Jacobs, our roommate, was a professional wrestler. So
yes, that's right.
That's why he had entrance
for
music.
those who don't know, yes, he was a professional. He used it in, when he was working on the indie scene and in Ring of Honor. And truthfully, it's great entrance music, and it really fit him at the time. And it's a great song. I mean, there's some fun musical bits in Transformers, the movie. I mean, there's one big one in particular that I think might have a hand in coloring people's perceptions of the movie.
Yeah, for sure. But the first time the touch plays during Transformers the movie, it does not make any sense at all. I was like, why is there suddenly all this synth? This is about to be the big showdown between Optimus Prime and Megatron. And it's like, ba, 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 da, da, da. What the hell is going on? Anyway, so obviously Jake and I didn't like the movie. Jeff, what did you think of the Transformers the movie?
Why, Jake? You couldn't find anything else. You couldn't look a little harder.
No, I probably should have looked a little harder, but a lot of it is, some of the 80s stuff Brad and I have both seen, like some of the Ghibli stuff, the Disney stuff. So it was a little slim pickings, and I don't know. I'm just sorry.
I forgive you. And honestly, I chose this week to be on, right? I mean, now I chose it for the other movie, but I kind of thought when I looked at the list, oh, Transformers, like that's kind of like, I kind of knew that it had a cult following, like you referenced, Jake, like a little one, like had some, I think I knew vaguely that there was a soundtrack associated with it and that it had celebrity voices, so I thought, oh, this was probably like a big thing. So like, yeah, sure, that should be fun. Transformers. I actually, my relationship with Transformers is I did have some of the toys as a kid, and I probably watched the TV show, but that's where it ends. So it's all foggy. I mean, this is my first Transformers movie. I never watched the live action ones. So I didn't really know what to expect. Yeah, it was terrible. I mean, it definitely felt like it was a Saturday morning. This is like my memories of Saturday morning cartoons, which I hadn't seen in 3+ decades, were coming back to me, and it felt like they didn't put any extra effort in quality wise to make this like a real movie that would, befit Robert Stack and Orson Welles and Leonard Nimoy, giving their voices to. I thought it would, does not at all what I expected. It was a hyperactive, never-ending. I mean, this movie never takes a break. It's just nonstop bad action, and then there's some stuff thrown in for kids to laugh at. I didn't know there were like dinosaur Transformers, which were so annoying. Let me be positive. Is there something I liked? I hated the music. You already touched on that. I mean, those glam rock songs is just not my genre. I mean, I despised those songs when they came out. Even Weird Al, who I do like Weird Al, and that's not really glam rock. That's sort of I don't know what that Dare to Be Stupid is. I didn't know that was in this movie, that Weird Al was in the movie, but even that I didn't like. I will say I kind of enjoyed some of the actual background score. It was kind of synthy, and at times it was kind of good, and I even looked up the composer. Apparently he did the score for Rocky IV, so he's not a nobody. So that's a positive. I enjoyed hearing Robert Stack. I kept picturing Unsolved Mysteries from my childhood, or thinking of Airplane. He's got a great voice. So yeah, those are my positives that I wrote down. I think that's about it. It was a horrible experience. I couldn't wait for it to end. So.
I'll say a few positive things. I gave this movie 2 stars. Everything you said about it is correct. It's too much action. The action is bad. It's completely impossible to follow. There's almost no effort made to let you know who's who. If you want to know who's a good guy and who's a bad guy, you have to really pay attention to what insignia they have on them and hope that is being shown on the screen at the time. I thought Leonard Nimoy did a good job as the villain. Like I've never thought of him as a villain, and as a villainous voice, I thought he was effective. I have to intersperse this with things I hated because it's so bad. First off, well, I guess let's talk about the plot a little bit. There's a fight between the Decepticons and what are the good guys called?
Autobots. Yeah.
Amidst that fight, both Megatron and Optimus Prime are fatally wounded. To their credit, at least as far as this movie goes, Optimus Prime dies and doesn't come back.
That's pretty cool that they killed the 2 main characters.
And Megatron, in a way, dies and doesn't come back because he just becomes a different character, which is stupid and just a way to, here's another toy that you can play with, and the Robert Stack robot becomes Optimus Prime. So here's another toy that you can play with. And then the Judd Nelson character, who's essentially the main character, Hot Rod, he becomes Optimus Prime at the end, or a different Hot Rod Prime or Rod Prime or whatever. And there's another toy that you can play with at the end. But amongst this, there's Galactus. In this movie, he's called Unicron, is a giant circle planet that is eating other planets. And he enlists Megatron, but turns him into Galvatron to fight the Autobots. None of that matters. The Dinobots are there, as Jeff mentioned. They are incredibly annoying. I loved Beast Wars. My only exposure to Transformers ever growing up was this computer animated show Beast Wars, which I thought was very cool. You watch it now, it'll hurt your eyes. Not worse than this movie. The Dinobots in this are so fucking annoying. Also, they're like invincible and giant, so like why didn't they just do everything all the time? Because whenever they showed up, the
proportions of some of it didn't always make sense. At one point, I felt like characters that had looked the same size got inside of another character, and I was like, "What just happened?" Maybe it's me. I didn't follow it correctly, but
it's not you. The scale got to me too when Daniel Witwicky, who is I presume a relative of the character that Shia LaBeouf plays in the movies, when he gets into his Transformer suit, he's the same size as Hot Rod, but that doesn't make any sense because he's not that much smaller than the suit itself. But when he's out of the suit, he's a human who looks like a human next to Transform. The scale is garbage. I liked the Weird Al needle drop, but I have to admit, it wasn't because I liked what was happening while it was on. I just really liked that song, so it was something I could sing along to while the movie was happening. And it was fun to realize that like I still know all the words to Dare to Be Stupid. One thing about the movie that I actually liked, you mentioned like it never slows down. There is like 10 minutes in the middle of the movie where Hot Rod and Cup are taken prisoner by the lizard bots. Also, that makes no sense. None of the dialogue there makes sense. I think it's deliberately confusing, but at one point, like people are on trial, and when they're found innocent, they're executed. Yes. I think it's like, this is so authoritarian that when you're innocent, you're executed. But it doesn't track. Like if you're a kid watching this, you're going to be like, what the shit?
That's what I was thinking. How is this made for kids? And they're just confusing the words innocent.
Right. But Cup, who is voiced by, I forget the actor's name. Let me look it up real quick. Old Italian actor who was like a far left-wing activist who was blacklisted during the McCarthy era. He voices Cup, Lionel Stander. I thought he was very funny he was basically playing Grandpa Simpson. Like, in my day, we did this. And all those jokes together were pretty funny. Each individual one was whatever. But as a bit, I was like, at least there's a character in this movie that is funny. He doesn't factor into the plot at all. And I actually had a really hard time remembering, now back to things I didn't like. A lot of this movie was like groups of people fighting together, then splitting off into different groups, then getting back together. And I couldn't track who was where at any time. At one point, the boy Daniel is upset that his father's Spike. Also, there's no way that the dad's name is Spike. The kid's name should be Spike. No one born in the 80s was called Spike. It's so confusing. No one ever has been called Spike, actually. But that bit really bothered me because Spike disappears for the entire movie, only to come back at one point and say, shit, in a children's movie.
Oh my God. Can we talk about that? I had to back it up 3 times and I laughed out loud. I mean, for people listening, there's a part of this movie, ostensibly for kids, where one of the characters, something happens and he just goes, oh shit, what are we going to do? And I thought, shit's kind of a funny word. You might think, oh, maybe he said shoot. I backed it up. It was clearly shit. I backed it up again, started giggling, and then I put on the captions to make sure I got it right. And it says, oh shit, what are we going to do? And I know Brad's a fan of this
to begin with, so I saw. I heard it too, and it's just. I mean, obviously we don't care about the language, but it's just so out of place and just so like weird to hear.
It was hilarious, and what's that? I Think You Should Leave. I know, Brad, we talked that you liked that show. I just couldn't help but think of that Driver's Ed sketch where he keeps showing the video, and then the kids are like, "Why is there swearing?" Because I was like, "Why is there swearing? This is the Transformers the movie." Anyway, that
actually, I felt that way about the whole movie. Like, why are there tables? Why is he wearing a Freddy Krueger mask? Why is any of this happening? God, that's one of the funniest sketches ever. Okay, Jake, what else? What else about Transformers?
I mean, the whole script, as far as I remembered, I think I texted you this, was like pew 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 pew. I mean, the thing had to be like 1 page long. I mean, there's so much pew pew in this movie. It's just in between that and the constant soundtrack barrage. I mean, this movie's just an assault in every possible. I mean, it's a lot like the Michael Bay movies. It's just a lot of incomprehensible action. Looks pretty bad. Characters are poorly drawn, if at all. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen one of the newer Transformers movies, then and like Brad, you said, I'm not a huge fan of the movies. I thought the first one was kind of fun and had its moments, but after that, it's just been absolute garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, and I think I told you this offline, I have a new appreciation for the Michael Bay movies because at least they come from a tradition of this kind of crap.
Yes,
like,
they do.
When I first saw them, I was like, this isn't what the TV show was. There was a story. You could tell what was going on. And now I realize, oh, you just ported the cartoon into a movie, which is what some people for sure wanted. Yep. I mean, the movies did so well. So Michael Bay, forgiven. This is not his fault. You mentioned that this movie is all pew-pew. So let me real quick talk about Rainbow Bright. Because, like I said, when I was growing up, that VHS got a lot of play in my grandfather's house in Florida. My grandpa was a snowbird. He lived in Michigan and Florida. And in Florida, that was really all we had. In Michigan, we had The Sound of Music. We had Mary Poppins. We had normal VHS tapes. But he didn't bring those down to Florida with him. I was like obsessed with the horse Onyx. If anyone listening to this has... Oh, you've seen this, Jeff?
No, I thought you were going to talk about the horse with the rainbow mane and the rainbow
that's Starlight.
Tail.
Yeah,
that's Starlight.
That's Starlight.
Okay.
That brings up the point I want to make. The entire movie of Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer, the entire script is people shouting other characters' names when they enter the screen, which happens all the time. Because that movie, too, is just people getting separated and put back together. Problems come up and are resolved immediately. But the whole movie is like, Onyx, Orin, Starlight, Chris, Rainbow. That's the whole movie. Stormy. The whole movie is just shouting the name of other characters as they re-enter the frame.
Because they're toys.
Well, right. They want you to remember what to ask for.
Yeah.
I will say this, as far as a movie goes, at least I knew who everyone was. In Transformers, the movie, I never knew what the hell was going on. These movies are all like pretty hard to find. So I'll at least say the cream did rise to the top. The good movies have been like re-released countlessly on physical media and are streaming. Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer I had to watch on OK.ru. I mean, like, it's not in the public consciousness. So I wrote in my Letterboxd review, like, I don't even know why I'm complaining about this. No one is trying to defend this movie, but I watched it. So everyone has to hear me bitch.
Well, I'm really happy to hear that you watched it because I was looking up lists of animated movies from the 80s just a couple of days ago in preparation for this episode. And I saw Rainbow Bright on there, and it was like a blast from the past because I forgot that Rainbow Bright existed.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, the horse toy that I used to have with the rainbow tail and the rainbow mane that I was obsessed with, that was Rainbow Bright. And then I clicked on it and I found out, no, in fact, Rainbow Bright is a totally different character that I pretty sure I just called the horse Rainbow Bright because I don't think I ever actually saw the movie. So that was my discovery a couple of days ago, and I didn't realize it'd be coming up again on this podcast. So I'm very happy that you actually did the work.
That's very funny. I think the whole franchise was like 18 episodes and 3 TV specials. Hallmark owned that toy. They're giant-headed kids with different colors, and Rainbow Bright is all the colors. And the horse, like all horses in all cartoons, is animated too hotly. Like, there were girls who wanted that horse. There were boys who wanted that horse, in not just to play with a toy. Very disturbing. Also, I'll just say one thing. This is true of Transformers and of Rainbow Bright, and I'm guessing of the Care Bears movies too. There's no thought given to like, why is the plot happening now? Like, Rainbow Bright starts and it feels like all these characters were just born just this moment, like just started to exist right now. The Rainbow Bright starts with a princess wanting to steal a diamond planet, but she's always been around. So why is she just now deciding to steal the diamond planet? But I don't know, that kind of thing where when you watch The Dark Knight, even though the Joker just appears and the whole thing is that he was just born in that minute, you know that he had a life before that, and his obfuscating what that was is part of the plot. Whereas in Rainbow Bright, you're like, none of this existed before the movie started. And in Transformers, it felt both that way and opposite. It's like, I don't know who any of these people are. They all have relationships with each other, but it does feel like the conflicts began just now.
Yeah.
Blah. You guys know about obviously you know about frame rates. You know, there's animation especially, it's easy to see when things are animated at 12 frames per second, or maybe even like 8 frames per second in the case of Transformers, or 24 frames per second to look more realistic, as was the case with the movie I recommended for both of you, Akira, one of the most highly regarded animated films of all time, kind of like the birth of modern anime, and the reason a lot of people got into anime in the West in the first place. It was the first anime movie I ever saw. Watched it at my friend Anthony Wood's house shortly before we watched Spirited Away. It was also my trigger for being disgusted by the uncanny valley, the big transformation at the end, and just like body horror in general. This I think was the seed of my fear of body horror. And it's an amazing movie, and I can't believe neither of you have seen it. Just real quick what it's about. It's a post-disaster, sort of post-apocalyptic Tokyo called Neo Tokyo. There's a motorcycle gang that gets caught up in a major government scandal that includes a resistance movement, other motorcycle gangs, psychic children that may be 1,000 years old also, and one members of this gang is psychically linked to, we find, the cause of the initial destruction of Tokyo and will probably cause another destruction of Tokyo and maybe the universe. I love it. Jake, what did you think of Akira?
Wow, yeah, it's a lot of movie, and there's a lot of different things that like different influences you can see in it. Like it's a little bit like Blade Runner in some ways. It's kind of what it reminded me of, and but then some echoes of some of the other movies we've watched in the podcast. It's so funny how that happened, like Village of the Damned. You've got these psychic kids or something like that. There's just all these weird little connections that I was making, but for knowing about the movie for so long, I didn't know a lot about like the specifics of the story or anything. So like when kind of watching this, getting my mind blown over and over again, where I'm just like, oh, motorcycle gang, awesome. And they're like, oh, psychic kids, that's awesome. Like everything must be like everything. I'm like, oh my god, that's awesome. Like it was kind of like all unexpected in a way, but it all worked towards the story, and like the action sequences are awesome, and it looks cool and it sounds cool, and it holds up as a movie. It's like like Transformers is such a product of its time. I mean, that's a very obvious, like you could put almost any, probably show it to my kid and be like, when was this movie made, and she would have said she'd probably say the 80s. It's very much like that, whereas Akira could come out almost like anytime. There's so much like cool stuff in that story that doesn't feel there's nothing like dated about it or anything. It's really, really cool.
Jeff, you don't put stars on your letterbox, so I don't know what you thought of Akira.
Well, the reason I wanted to come on this episode is because, like you said, I'd never seen it. It's a huge never did it for me as far as, well, anything. You see this movie on lists of greatest films, not just greatest animated films. Animation itself is kind of a weak spot for me. I think Jake knows this. I'm ashamed to admit, my past may have, in my past, I may have made some cracks about, cartoons. But, the fact is, I have a lot of great animated movies that I love. Even though I'm 42 years old now, I didn't watch my first Miyazaki film, just as a point of reference, till like 7 years ago. And then my wife and I watched almost all of them. And I loved, many of them I adore now. So it's not like my favorite movie from last year was Flow, I think was probably my one or number two movie. So I have a great, I really do love some animation. It just hasn't been a huge part of my life or my film knowledge. I never took a class on animation. I've never been particularly into animation history. Lots of never did it's on animation. Akira is probably the one that I think of the most because it's got that cool poster, frankly. It's just a really cool poster. It looks like a badass motorcycle and this guy with this cool jacket walking towards it. And if you haven't seen the poster, anyone listening should Google the poster because it's an all-time great film poster. So it's been on my want to see list for a long time, and I was really excited to see, have the opportunity to come on and talk to you guys about it. I wish that the episode hadn't started with me arguing about 4-year-old virgin, for the reason that this was really not for me. I did not really enjoy this that much. It was everything you guys have said about some of the animation and the style is true. It was really great vibes in this, especially the opening, some of the music, when some of that music kicked in and the motorcycle bikes were going. I was like, yeah, this is really stylish. It's cool. Great animation. It just I didn't get that interested into the plot or the characters or what was going on. And at over 2 hours or just about 2 hours, I just kind of started to lose interest. So yeah, I hate to be the guy coming on here again, for the second time this episode, saying that, this movie you guys love is didn't really hit for me. But yeah, I just don't know. I just couldn't connect with a lot of what was happening or a lot of the characters. Like, is it the story? Is it the characters? Or is it really just vibes? I guess I'm actually kind of curious, because for me, I was just kind of like, by the end of the 2 hours, I was just I didn't really care what was happening that much. So I'm just kind of curious what I was missing besides the cool animation and the cool vibes.
Right. Okay. So you don't like when Asian people are animated to look like Asian people. That's what's happening.
Wait. I don't know what you're putting on me, but I don't think I said those words.
No. No, for me, it's everything. For one thing, so much care was put into the way that the characters moved in space in a way that I don't think any animated movie before or since ever did. The closest you get before this is rotoscoping, which there was a ton of, dating back to the very beginning of animation when the Fleischer brothers invented rotoscoping, had it in pre-feature animation movies. So animated characters moved realistically through the whole of animation. But that started to become very expensive. And you see in most anime and plenty of American animation, especially Saturday morning cartoons, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, Transformers, that the way that the movement in animation works is things are storyboarded, and you'll have keyframes. Keyframe animators are in charge of like basically what the flow of a movie will or a TV show will look like. And then you have in-between animators who will connect each keyframe. And sometimes to save money, because it's all very time consuming, you animate on twos, which means you skip a frame in between. And you can see this, like it's very like herky jerky. In the Transformers, it was like really egregious. In the Flintstones, you'll notice in the Flintstones, all that's being animated is the head and their body, and everything else in the frame will stay still. Backgrounds will be repeated as people walk. There's all kinds of ways to save money because animation is very time consuming and very expensive. Akira does none of that. Katsuhiro Otomo was very insistent that when he storyboarded the movie, every keyframe was made in painstaking detail, less color. And I think that really shows in the movie. There are some scenes that feel a little less fluid, and that's because this is a very long movie for an animated movie, and they started to run out of money and started to run out of time. But things are cheaper in Japan just in general, and this was after an economic downturn in the country. So $10 million that this cost, I think, stretched a little farther, but I'm a little bit rambling here, but I think this is important. Godzilla -1 came out a couple years ago, and people were freaking out about what a great looking movie it was for how cheaply it was made. And that's just because animators in Japan require less budget than animators in the United States. And that's a sad state of affairs over there. It's not good that workers aren't paid well. But Akira, unlike even the best movies of the time coming out of Japan, like unlike even Ghost of the Shell, which has plenty of shortcuts that are very obvious, and it's not as good of a movie. And I think where Jeff is sort of coming in and being like, this didn't hit for me, Ghost in the Shell doesn't hit for me. Every shot is so detailed and every movement is so fluid and the action is so easy to follow and entertaining. And I am interested in the story between Tetsuo and Kaneda and Kai and Kaori, who has a very tragic and disgusting end. I don't get so emotionally involved in the sci-fi of it all, but I think there's a real human story in the middle of it between these three friends and one of their girlfriends. And like the espers are fun and interesting in the sci-fi way, but what gets me is the human story at the center. I think that's what pulls me through the 2 hours. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer to your question.
No, it's interesting. I like the history lesson too, because I could definitely see that in the Transformers about the every other frame, because that thing was choppy. I mean, that was not smooth. And Akira was, noticeably better and different, and I mean, just way better, miles beyond. I don't know, Jake, did this hit for you?
Yeah.
I mean, this was your first time as well, but you were caught up in the story.
So the first time for me with a lot of, especially with animated movies, you asked if it was like vibe or story or character, whatever. And first and foremost, it's always going to be vibe for me. Like the first time watching a movie, and especially one like this that has such a high reputation, coming in, I'm like, all right, what's this movie going to feel like? How's it going to excite me? And I mentioned that it was like everything that kept happening was like kind of exciting to me. And if you ask me right now, like to recap the story for you, that's probably not going to happen so much, but just the vibe of the movie, the look of the movie, the excitement of the movie, all of that, really got to me. And I did get into the characters and the story. Obviously, I have to get into that a little bit, but just on the first time, those the first two things, the vibe and the overall just like look of the movie is what's going to carry me through. And if that was, enough, certainly was enough for me this time around. And I did buy the movie actually. I didn't just rent it. So like I bought it because I definitely plan on watching it again, trying to get more into it. But yeah, that's what did it for me.
One thing, especially relating back to what Brad said about some of that animation history, I had this thought, and it might be a really stupid thought. You can tell me if it is, but when I was sort of reflecting on the movie after it was over, having someone who has done a lot of studying and some teaching on film history, I started to think about this because I knew about the reputation. I was looking at the Wikipedia article about how, influential this was. And I was wondering, it made me think a little bit of Citizen Kane, because I have this idea of like this imaginary film viewer who's never seen something before. It was in 1975 or whatever. Maybe they've seen The Wizard of Oz or something. But suddenly they're like, oh, let me watch the greatest film of all time, quote unquote, and watch Citizen Kane. And they don't really appreciate it at all, because a huge part of the appreciation of that is knowing what movies looked like before 1941, before Citizen Kane, and of that time period, and how influential, this sort of was, not just for storytelling, but just visually. And you get some of the, Citizen Kane, I think, stands on its own in other ways too, but that's certainly a part of it that somebody wouldn't understand if they don't know old movies. I was kind of wondering if some of that could be, I just haven't watched a lot of anime, or a lot of animated movies from this era. And if it is this kind of technological breakthrough, I mean, that's just going to go over my head and I might not appreciate it. I don't know if it's a crazy comparison or not.
No, I don't think that's crazy at all. This is, like you said, this isn't just showing up on like the best animated movies list. Like this is on Letterboxd top 250 movies of all time. It's one of the most highly regarded animated movies ever. Not only did movies not look at this at the time, movies don't look like this now. I mean, movies didn't look like this after this. There aren't other movies that look like Akira, except maybe like Red Zone. I mean, there's like, but that doesn't have, you didn't connect with the story, and Jake, you can't remember it, but I think a lot of people do connect with the story. The other thing is that this movie did that other anime movies didn't do before, and a lot of cases since, is the characters look like real people. Miyazaki does this, and Takahata does it, or did it. He's passed away. And I think that's why a lot of their movies have stood the test of time in ways that others don't. Anime, a lot of it was influenced initially by Astro Boy, and Astro Boy was influenced by Steamboat Willie. So big eyes, over-exaggerated features, using other parts of the body to let you know one character from another, like different hairstyles or different outfits. Transformers did not do that for us at all. But in anime, you'd see like, I saw a great video essay about Akira, a YouTube channel called Cinema Tyler. He talked about how Sailor Moon, all their faces are exactly the same, but their hair is different. The women are hypersexualized, and the women in Akira look like real women. They look like real teenage or early 20s girls. They're wearing the same clothes as the guys because it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Why would they be dressing in bikinis? On a cultural level, it's really interesting. For me, the fact that this is not really replicated because it's so expensive is really interesting. And where I see the legacy of this movie is in people like Ginzilba Lotus and the makers of Robot Dreams, or even like Julian Glander, who's on a much smaller scale, or Eric Power. These are like small indie animators who do a lot of the work themselves, and just the movie takes as long as it takes to make, and like as long as it takes for them to finance, because they have to keep getting financing as they're making it. You don't see this with big studio animated movies. You're going to see corners being cut. I was going to call it Gem and the Holograms, but I didn't watch that. In Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer, it's a mostly competently animated movie, but there is one scene where she goes underground to fight lizard people, because that's something that happened in every 80s cartoon. It happened in Transformers. In that scene, the backgrounds are like, there's no detail whatsoever. In fact, a lot of the shot just looks gray. Akira is shot on 70 millimeter film and cell animated. That's not something that happens in animated film, but he wanted every bit of that detail shown on the screen. I think about it in terms of movies that have huge sets. We watched New York, New York recently, a movie that is not well received. I like it, but a lot of people don't. But one thing that is undeniably cool about New York, New York is the golden age of Hollywood style sets that he uses. And all I could think watching that was this ever used on another movie? Did he build this just for this scene in a movie that no one cares about anymore? And that's what happens in Akira. All these backgrounds are so detailed and amazing to look at, and are not reused in other movies. I mean, sometimes this does happen in animated films. You can see this in Disney movies. There's a dancing scene between Mowgli and Baloo. Those frames, that whole dance sequence is reused in Robin Hood, between Robin Hood and Maid Marian. Now, it doesn't matter because it's fun in both movies, but that's cutting corners to save money. And this movie does none of that. I think not only is it important for what it influenced, but it's important because it's singular.
Knowledge dump there.
Yeah, you should feel good about your insight. Yeah. This is not the best meme I saw on Twitter about movies recently is, and I hate this because I love the movie The Boss Baby, but it's a guy who's only seen Boss Baby watching his second movie. Lots of Boss Baby vibes in this movie.
I like that.
That you did not fall. That is not what is happening here.
Okay. All right. Really wanted to like it. I really did. And I didn't dislike it, but it's just not. Maybe I'll watch it again on the big screen someday, because I watched it on a big TV, but I feel like maybe I'd like it more if it was like in a theater setting, just because it is so visual.
Yeah, so. Everything's always better in the theater, except I just saw Honey Don't, and that made me wish I wasn't in a theater so I could have taken a break. That's a 90-minute movie that feels like it's 5 hours long.
Well, to hit on, Jeff, too, how Akira is not like very, very different movie and everything, but my wife and I just rewatched The Royal Tenenbaums, which I know everybody loves and is like Wes Anderson's masterpiece. It's brilliant. It's this and that. I mean, yeah, but like the Grand Budapest Hotel is Wes Anderson's masterpiece. I mean, I would put that over Royal Tenenbaums, but I think you'd get an argument from a good number of people about it.
I like Royal Tenenbaums, and I would still say that it is not his masterpiece.
And I liked it too, but I just kept waiting for this to be like this genius masterpiece of a movie, and it was okay.
I think what you get from Royal Tenenbaums is, wow, it's really obvious that Gene Hackman was arguing with Wes Anderson on the set of this film.
Once you know that, it does kind of color the perception of the movie, and that's really a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same thing for Days of Heaven, which we talked about together. Like, that did not hit for me.
Mm-hmm. I actually had thought of your comments on that when I was trying to think about what am I going to say about Akira? Because you were kind of like, I didn't care what was happening to the characters. And I was kind of like, I guess I kind of feel that way about Akira because I was just like, I just don't, I don't know. I just, it was just no emotional investment. It was just kind of, it was pretty cool. And then it just kept going. And then it was kind of some David Cronenberg body horror with a little sprinkle of Kubrick at the end. And it was over. And I was like, all right, well, that was neat, but not really for me.
This is a movie that has gotten better for me on repeat watchings, but I didn't start in as low a place as you did. So if I'm never going to watch Days of Heaven again. If I were you, I would never watch Akira again. There's no reason to the only movie I do that with is Ratatouille, which is one where I'm like, what are people seeing in this movie that I am not seeing? I do not get any joy from Ratatouille.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting one. I hope you guys talk about that later. But
we've talked about it before because we did a Pixar episode, but I just, I just don't care about Ratatouille, and people are like, it's the best Pixar movie. I'm sorry, WALL-E exists. It is not the best Pixar movie.
It's not even in my top 10 Pixar movies, and I like it more than you do probably, but yeah, I mean, it's top 15.
Yeah. And I'm also like a food guy. I love food movies. I love food in general. I like Chef more than most people. Chef, I think, has aged kind of poorly. I still think that movie's so dope.
Yeah, I totally dig Chef. Yeah, if I see that on TV, I'm watching Chef. It's fun.
Okay, great. I just saw the new trailer, or the trailer for the new James L. Brooks movie that he's coming out of retirement for, and it looks really bad. And I'm like, is Chef like this? Is this the same vibe? I worry. So we can cut it there for Akira.
I did prepare Jeff, the best guest that we have. He has. Are we doing any kind of lists or anything? Do you guys do anything like that for these episodes? So he should of what you've seen, which I mean, mine's limited too. My list is small, but we should all have lists.
Yeah, I have a list. After crapping on the 80s, I have like a pretty robust list. Okay, so real quick, let's do our short lists for 1980s before we get to our feature list. My number 10 is Andrew Stanton's A Story. This was before he made, WALL-E, Finding Nemo, the upcoming Toy Story 5. Fingers crossed. He made this weird short called A Story. I remember when I watched it thinking, I'm really surprised Pixar hired this guy. My number 9 is Balance by Christopher and Wolfgang Lowenstein. Yeah, it's just like a really weird, really cool stop motion animated Oscar-winning short. My number 8 is Tango by, I could not pronounce this guy's name if you gave me a million years. I'm going to say it phonetically. Zbigniew Rybczynski. It's like a diorama movie. It's very cool. I am not a Garfield fan. I've always been more of a Heathcliff guy, but A Garfield Christmas by Phil Roman, who did a lot of the Peanuts stuff. It is my number 7. My number 6, speaking of Peanuts, is Sam James and Bill Melendez's Happy New Year, Charlie Brown. My number 5 is Aardman and Nick Park's A Grand Day Out. Actually, this probably predates Aardman because A Grand Day Out was the first ever Wallace and Gromit short. My number 4 is a movie I just saw a couple weeks ago as part of Don Hertzfeld's animation mixtape. It's called The Big Snit by Richard Conde. I think it was nominated for an Oscar. Very cool movie, didn't win. My number 3 is Vincent by Tim Burton, a stop motion ode to Vincent Price. Cool gothic stop motion stuff. My number 2 is Anna and Bella by Borg Ring. This was Oscar winning and really great. I see you gave it 4.5 stars. My number 1 is kind of a cheat. It's called Creature Comforts. I think this was actually a series of shorts, but I guess I'm giving it to either the first short or an amalgamation of the shorts. Nick Park went to the zoo and recorded people talking about animals and then animated through stop motion animals over those conversations. And I just think that's wonderful.
Yep, it's delightful. I love that one. All right, so I do have a top 10 for the 80s. There's some Pixar stuff on here and one sort of TV show, but I think it counts. Letterboxd counts it, so I'm going to use it. My number 10 is Pixar's Luxo Jr., about the lamp. That has become my favorite word. Iconic. My number 9 is the Roger Rabbit film, Tummy Trouble. I love the Roger Rabbit short films. They're all good.
I love Roger Rabbit a lot. I think those short films are just okay.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think they're delightful. I wouldn't miss them if they were gone like I would the movie, but I think they're a treat.
Very few people have actually seen them, so we don't have to defend them so much.
I don't remember where I watched them, but they must have been streaming on something.
I saw them on YouTube last year or 2 years
ago. Oh, they're on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay, cool.
Any horse. Where was number 8 is another Pixar film, Knick Knack, about the little snowman on the shelf. Number 7, the first Wallace and Gromit movie, Grand Day Out. I love all the Wallace and Gromit films. My number 6 is the TV one, but like I said, Letterboxd counts it as an animated short. So I'll say The Simpsons Christmas Special, which I still think it was kind of a special on its own. And then the series didn't actually start until it was like several months later that season 1 actually began. So I think it's fair.
I think it counts. We're going to talk next week about a TV thing that I think doesn't count. So, but this I think definitely counts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's good. Like, I mean, first season Simpsons is they're still finding their footing, but it's a good Christmas special. My number 5 is, as you mentioned, Creature Comforts. It's really a fun time. Number 4, I keep saying I don't like A Christmas Carol, but I have number 4, Mickey's Christmas Carol, because I think they did a really good job with it. I really enjoy it. Number 3 is Red's Dream, another Pixar film about the bicycle in the corner. Number 2, I have Anna and Bella, which is a delight. And then Tin Toy, Pixar's film about the toy soldier, is my number 1.
Cool. And now our feature films of the 1980s. I have many honorable mentions.
But first, are we counting Roger Rabbit as an animated movie? No, I didn't think so, because it's too, there's way more live action in that movie.
Way more live action.
I had that question too.
Yeah,
no, sorry. Roger Rabbit doesn't count. Roger Rabbit, one of the, for me, top 10 movies of all time, but not.
Oh, wow. I mean, I love it. That's high, though, the high praise. So
I'm obsessed with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I think it's great. Yeah, I had it with an asterisk at my number 4 spot, so I wasn't sure if I'll take it out. So
yeah, it would be my number 1 if it were here, but it doesn't count.
Mine too.
Okay. Jake, why don't you start?
All right, I will start off the list. Like I was just telling the guys, my list is not very robust and it's not very long. I'm going to MySpace this one, just like I did, I believe, for one of our other episodes. I've got a top 8. Number 8, Don Bluth, The Land Before Time. We spoke about Bluth briefly on this episode. Number 7 is The Great Mouse Detective, one of Disney's better efforts from that decade. Number 6, the Hungarian film Son of the White Mare, which we covered on the first season of the podcast. Very cool movie, very different, very interesting. So check out that episode if that's something that interests you. Number 5, I have Kiki's Delivery Service, one of Miyazaki's more highly regarded movies. I know we're all familiar with that one. Number 4 is The Little Mermaid, Disney's best effort from the 80s, and just a classic that holds up. I watched it very recently, and I watched it a lot with my kid growing up. Songs are great. I mean, it's just a great movie. My number 3 is the movie we spoke about at some length on this episode, and that's Akira. And my number 2, this is a real tough choice too, also between my number 2 and my number 1. Today I have My Neighbor Totoro as my number 2, and then Grave of the Fireflies is my number 1, best animated film of the 1980s.
So you got Miyazaki and Takahata up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Jeff.
Figures, yeah.
Lay it on.
Yeah, I put together a top 8 if we're not including Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And I realized looking at some letterbox lists of best animated movies of the 80s, there's a ton of these that I know the titles. So I've known them my whole life. I can even picture some of the artwork, but I could not tell you for sure that I've seen them. Like Land Before Time, Oliver and Company. I'm not going to throw out all the titles, but any major studio release. There's very few of them that I was certain I had seen because I had no real memory of them being important to my life, even though they're intimately familiar, just some of the artwork and things. So that being said, I have 2 honorable mentions because these are 2 that I'm sure I saw because I know they had a huge effect on me. I just can't remember them all. So, I could not in any good faith put them in a ranking, but I do want to say that The Brave Little Toaster meant a great deal to me once upon a time. And An American Tail, I loved that movie. I know as a kid, Fievel with his hat, and especially the song Somewhere Out There was a big song for me.
Not There Are No Cats in America? That was huge for me.
Number 2, There Are No Cats in America.
I don't remember seeing that one, and I feel like I should have, but I couldn't in good conscience put it on my list, but I really should watch that.
It's those 2 I love, and it's been so long since I've seen them. They are also not on my list.
Okay, fair enough. Good. So I'm not.
I'm glad you mentioned them.
Nostalgic, but I don't want to put it on a list. So my number 8 would be Akira, which again I really did enjoy some of, but it just didn't click for me. Wanted to put it on here. My number 7. So I did a double feature last night because I felt like I hated Transformers, didn't really click with Akira. I need to see some more movies, and I had nothing to do last night. So I got on some letterbox lists, and I thought, let me catch up on some things, especially my wife and I never finished Miyazaki. So his first 3 movies I'd never seen. So I decided to go with Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So watched that one last night. That's my number 7. It was good. It's just classic, brilliant conception of the world and the things in it, and especially aviation tools. I mean, he's got some cool gliders and things in this movie. It very much feels like Miyazaki. Not one of my favorites, though. A little action forward for me, and I didn't love all that, but it was still really, really impressive. So that's my number 7. Number 6, Jake just mentioned Grave of the Fireflies. I only saw that one 6 or 7 years ago, only once. It made quite an impression, though. So strong feelings for that movie. My number 5 is the other movie I watched last night. Instead of doing a double feature of Miyazaki, I decided to watch When the Wind Blows, which is Harold Briggs, who I'm going to mention again later. But it's a British animated movie about preparing for the nuclear apocalypse and then living through it. And it's just it's just a couple, an old British couple living in the countryside and completely isolated by themselves. And it starts out being very humorous, and they're chit-chatting, and he's reading from his pamphlet about what the government says to do for preparing for nuclear war, and then it gets pretty dark. So I highly recommend this movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to always remember it. And so that's really probably a real discovery for me this week, was When the Wind Blows.
We've talked about When the Wind Blows on the podcast before, because I made my in-laws watch that on Christmas Day once, and they've never forgiven me.
Yeah, not really Christmas material. All right, my number 4 is The Little Mermaid. Like Jake, I have great memories of this movie. I mean, I have rewatched this numerous times, including in the last 4 or 5 years, and it still holds up. Great songs. Number 3, Kiki's Delivery Service, one of my absolute favorite Miyazaki's. It might be my wife's favorite Miyazaki. We've seen this one a lot, and it's just magical. So I'm sure a lot of people, if you're listening this deep into this animation podcast, you know Kiki's Delivery Service, but it means a lot to me. My number 2 and my number 1 are pretty close right now. I wrote down my number 2 is another Harold Briggs story. And this is what you should have watched with your family on Christmas, Brad. But it's only, I don't know if it counts for, if you guys would put it on your list, but it's only 25 minutes, and it was made for British television, but it's The Snowman from, I think, 1982. And it's the same original book author where When the Wind Blows was adapted from. And it's just a magical story of a kid that builds a snowman, and it's mostly wordless, and it's got a great musical score, and it's just something ineffably magical about it.
Just real fast. His name's Raymond Briggs.
Raymond Briggs. Thank you. So 2 Raymond Briggs on my list, and then my number 1 is My Neighbor Totoro, which is like The Snowman. It's just kind of hard to express the magic that it creates. It's just kind of a perfect little piece of filmmaking.
Cool. I'm glad that When the Wind Blows got nominated somewhere else, or got called out somewhere else, because I'm tired of being the only person talking about it. Okay, a few honorable mentions. The United States kind of shit the bed in the 80s. Other countries were picking up the slack. Alexander Stitt in Australia made an animated adaptation of Beowulf, a comedy called Grendel, 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 starring Peter Ustinov as Grendel. It's good, not great, worth mentioning. Victor Kubal, who is a very gothic, pretty strange animator, very simple animation, but doesn't feel as cheap as Transformers did. Just very simple. He's a Slovakian animator. The movie I'm calling out here is The Bloody Lady. It's his Dracula. This is the original source material, I think, was influenced Bram Stoker's Dracula. Jiri Barta, a former Czechoslovakian animator back when that country existed. He makes a movie about once every 20 years, and his first feature was The Pied Piper. Very interesting. He then made a movie I like even more called Toys in the Attic. And supposedly, he has a movie coming out within the next few years called Golem. Great Mouse Detective is an honorable mention. Angel's Egg, which was made by Mamoru Oshii, who also made Ghost in the Shell. This is a totally avant-garde art film. You need a lot of patience to get through it, but it's beautiful. Miyazaki's Castle in the Sky, Disney's Oliver and Company, which has the only film appearance of Billy Joel. Billy Joel never appeared in any other movie in any form, but he appears in this, and there's some bangers songs in this movie. The stop-motion animated version of Alice in Wonderland, just called Alice, by, I cannot pronounce his last name, but a Czech surrealist animator called Jan Svankmajer. I think Svankmajer? I don't know. I'm sorry. Jan. Real honorable mentions. Mori Masaki's Barefoot Gen, which is another movie about it's crazy that this decade had so many nuclear Holocaust movies, but this is another Japanese nuclear Holocaust movie. Very good. Not as good as, or as impactful as Grave of the Fireflies, and not as remembered for that reason. Isao Takahata's Chi the Brat. Very cute movie about a little girl whose dad is a deadbeat and her trying to get him to get his life a little bit back together. And then 2 more Miyazaki movies just outside my top 10, My Neighbor Totoro and Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, which I like a lot. I gave both of these movies 4 stars, but I like other Miyazaki movies better, including one higher up on this list. My number 10 is Son of the White Mare, which Jake already talked about, but Marcel Yankovic's movie, folktale, brilliant animation, super trippy. Get stoned, watch this thing. It's wild. People are dragons are skyscrapers. It's bizarre.
That's how I watched it.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry, Mom.
My number 9 is Martin Rosen's The Plague Dogs. This is the lesser known of the 2 Martin Rosen animated films after Watership Down. And this one's about dogs who are suspected of carrying disease being hunted. Totally harrowing and incredible. Just as good as Watership Down, I think. My number 8 is Don Bluth's The Secret of Nim. It's a really great sci-fi fable about a mouse trying to save her son from disease, and Dom DeLuise as an obnoxious crow, who I like a lot. My number 7 is Ghosh the Cellist, which is an Isao Takahata film about a cellist. It's only 63 minutes long, and it's a very magical movie about a musician trying to be great. Japanese movies about someone trying to be really good at one thing are so satisfying, and this is a great one. It's really hard to find with an English dub, but hopefully it'll get a re-release sometime. I'm surprised that there wasn't like some big Takahata retrospective after he died. It's a real bummer. My number 6 is Paul Grimalt's The King and the Mockingbird. Fascinating story behind this movie. It was released decades earlier under a different title, unfinished. Grimalt did not want it released, but the studio was like, we're done with you. We're releasing this as is. It feels unfinished. And then over the next several decades, he was able to finish the movie, and it is a spectacular fantasy about a greedy king, also featuring the voice of Peter Ustinov in the English dub. But I'm not sure. I think The King and the Mockingbird, the final version, doesn't have an English dub. Certainly doesn't have Ustinov in the 80s in an English dub, but the original, the only reason to watch it is for Ustinov as the titular Mockingbird. Great movie. Oh, it's on Canopy, so worth checking out. My number 5 is When the Wind Blows, which Jeff described perfectly. Sorry, Ken and Maggie, for putting you through that. It's a great movie. Directed by Jimmy T. Murakami. My number 4 is The Little Mermaid, easily the best Disney movie of the 80s by like miles and miles. My number 3 is Kiki's Delivery Service, my favorite Miyazaki movie of the decade. So much whimsy in this one. Kiki's a great character. Anthropomorphic animals. What could go wrong?
You know, you kind of, before Flo came out, you kind of had the cat from Kiki's Delivery Service.
That was it.
Now you have the cat from Flo.
Now I have the cat from Flo. Well, black cats show up a lot in Miyazaki stuff, but
that's true.
Very prominently featured in Kiki's Delivery Service. My number 2 is Akira, and my number 1 is Grave of the Fireflies. Takahata's masterpiece. Yeah, we've talked about it at great length. We have a YouTube video that's just about Grave of the Fireflies. So that's what's up.
Jake, I'm really sympathetic now that you couldn't find a movie to recommend for Brad other than Transformers, the movie.
Oh, because I've seen all this shit?
Yeah, because I feel like I was looking for things to watch last night and had some pretty elaborate lists, and I don't think half of the movies Brad just mentioned were on any of those lists that
and they're great.
Looking at last night. So
yeah, just like a few other. Here, let's just, before we go, talk about some movies that I do want to see from the 80s that I didn't see, so that people don't get too upset. I've never seen Neo Tokyo, which, what's his name? It's an anthology movie, and it's a movie that Katsuhiro Otomo worked on before Akira. I've never seen Time Masters by Rene Laloux, which is supposedly very influential and interesting. I've never seen Heavy Metal, which I don't know if it's super highly regarded, except for like boobs.
I looked at that as one of the things last night, and there was a top Letterboxd review that was like, this is made by perverts for perverts.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, maybe not tonight.
Right.
So.
Oh, I've never seen L'Ange, the Angel, the Patrick Bukanowski movie, which is supposed to be amazing, but it's an art film, so it's certainly not going to be for everybody. And I have it, and I should have watched it. That was dumb. I have it on Blu-ray from Deaf Crocodile. They, from their first Treasures of Soviet Animation compilation, there's this Roman Kachanov movie called The Secret of the Third Planet, which is supposed to be another one of these, like, it feels like a 70s movie, but it's an 80s movie, real trippy sci-fi. So I'm bummed I didn't watch that one before this. But so there are some that didn't get mentioned at all because we haven't seen them. And I've also never seen Bakshi's American Pop, which is supposed to be very good. If you're into Bakshi, which is like very specific, it's like a very, it might be another like For Perverts by Perverts vibe. But he's some of his movies are like, I hate his Lord of the Rings stuff. That's where we are on that. Jeff, thanks so much for being here. Anything you want to say before we jet?
No, I almost didn't want to come on this season because I feel like such an animation noob. I told Jake that. I was like, I don't know if you guys really want me. I don't know what I'm going to bring to the table. And well, in point of fact, maybe I brought nothing to the table because I didn't like either of the movies that much. So, but anyway, it was still a blast to be here. So I'm appreciative to be back, and good luck with season 2. And maybe I'll see you in season 3.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be back next week with the films of the 90s with special guest Ryan Verrill from Disconnected.